I wanna see you in the cold nights, give you just a little word.
So today I'm driving the Aston Martin Vantage V8, 4.3 litre, naturally aspirated, but not standard. You may be wondering from the title what the CTR part stands for. It stands for Challenge the Road. So a few of you may already know that I've been doing quite a lot of work with Challenge the Road as a company in terms of their media and social media presence for a couple of years. And I actually remember when Richard from Challenge the Road was mentioning the idea of creating this car and making it into kind of like a production line. So to actually be behind the wheel of one today is it's extremely exciting. I mean, it's the first time I've driven a V8. I don't think it'll be the last. Wondering what's the difference between a standard V8 and the CTR edition. So let me tell you. To begin with, the overall design and purpose of the build of this car was to try and match or get as close to the performance and design element of the GT8. So obviously the kind of top end Vantage that you can buy in the current day at least, but for half the price. I think more than half the price. But you obviously have to ask the question of, is it possible? And Challenge the Road have done virtually everything to make that possible, and from an outsider perspective they've basically achieved it. You could argue that it hasn't got the overload of carbon, the ridiculous spoiler, and all those kind of crazy parts that kind of tear the GT8 away from a standard Aston Martin in general. But when we're talking about engine performance and driving ability, I'd say it's pretty well matched. So where do I begin? I think if we start to talk about the weight element to the car, Challenge the Road have managed to change this car to be 78 kilograms lighter than the standard Vantage, which may not sound like a lot, but when you're talking about a performance car and even with how the Vantage is already set up, because it's not ridiculously heavy, obviously being a sports car, or you could argue a supercar of its age, it's already quite light. So 78 kilograms reducted off of the original weight is actually a lot. So what's been done to the car to kind of take away that weight? I think the first thing to point out may be quite obvious to certain viewers, and that's the seats. So these are actually a custom made seat with CTR embroidery, and themselves probably weigh half the weight of a standard seat. Obviously you haven't got the electronics and all those kind of parts to the standard seats, obviously being more comfort design. So that's a huge part. We've got lightweight alloys. We've got a lightweight battery even. So they've gone to the extent to make sure that every single part that could be lighter has been made lighter. So of course the next changes are more visual, and they are to do with exterior and interior parts. But we'll start with the exterior. And I guess the best place to start is the very bold blue. It's not a standard blue, and it's not a blue I think I've ever seen on Aston Martin, or even close. Because obviously Aston Martins tend to have that heritage of silver, greens, blacks, or kind of like almost a dark aluminium. But this is actually finished in a Lamborghini colour of Vapist blue. I think I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but I'm sure someone can correct me in the comments or on various different other social platforms. But it just looks so good on the car with the bronze finish on the wheels as well. It really kind of ties into, give it a really nice overall sporty look. Because I think if you left this car stock or left it silver, black, that kind of colour on the outside, you just assume it was a normal Vantage. It'd be like a very discreet sleeper, if you like. But the colour definitely kind of makes it stand out and makes people turn their heads a lot more than what a standard Vantage would. And that's what you want, really, isn't it? Because obviously a GT8, if we're looking at that as the competitor, would turn anyone's head with the ridiculous body shape, spoilers, and specs that you can get on those cars. So Challenger have done really well to kind of tie that into this car to make it even more special. As well as the colour, we've got a small lips spoiler on the rear end and a black diffuser finished in CTR black. We've got CTR Vantage brake calipers, which do look amazing. They're really cool, like so discreet, but really nice finish with the logo. We've got CTR badging on the front grille, number plate adjustments to specifically fit onto the front grille and the rear end to make them look a little bit less chunky, and I guess that kind of classic number plate design where it just looks more bigger than the car. So then we go on to the interior, and the best place to start, which I've already mentioned, is the lightweight bucket seats. They're actually custom handmade specifically per car, so you can choose what colour you'd like them, and potentially even where you'd like the embroidery, or what colour you'd like the embroidery of the CTR logo. But they're super comfy, and I'm quite surprised because a lot of the time when you get in a bucket seat, especially in something of this kind of sports element or supercar element, you wouldn't last an hour without a bit of back pain. But so far, so good. Furthermore, with the interior, we have adjusted pedals, which actually, it's such a silly change that a lot of people wouldn't even consider, but it does help the drive so much. There's so much more comfort, and even in the way that you can kind of position your feet to switch between the pedals, it makes it a lot easier to drive and up and down shift through the gears. We've got a lovely satin finished silver gear knob, which really helps kind of get your grasp of where you are in the gears, and makes it a lot more comfortable to put your hand onto up and down shift rather than having something that's leather or kind of like even a carbon fibre. I don't think would be as comfortable. So that's a really nice finish in itself. One thing that will come stock with these cars that isn't currently set up on this specific model is Apple CarPlay. And I think that's the only element that the car's potentially missing, because with this car being 2006, don't get me wrong, feeling brand new in terms of driving and performance, of it only having 6,000 miles from new, it's kind of missing that element of entertainment, because as well as the exhaust being an absolutely brilliant sound, on a slightly longer road trip or perhaps a more boring A or B road, you might want to have some tunes on. So once the Apple CarPlay is set up in this, it would literally have everything you could possibly ask for. As well as having a head-up display option, which is brilliant really, because a lot of the time you do get distracted when you're kind of driving speed or driving along roads that potentially you don't know, and you don't want to keep looking down at your dash. So to have that kind of head-up display alongside your Apple CarPlay, obviously upgraded maps and different capabilities with like software, I think that's amazing. So let's move on to the performance side of things and the way it drives. I think the first thing that's noticeable the most from a driving perspective is the suspension and setup in terms of the steering. And I was worried with the custom built damper suspension it would be too hard for the road, or potentially be very worried about where I was going in terms of over bumps or even the kind of little potholes and stuff. Especially with the car having spaces as well, it kind of gives it that element that you kind of worry that you might not be able to use it in specific places, or you'd be worried to take it out on the road in a kind of day-to-day drive or even over the weekend. But it's impressed me. I mean, I generally haven't had a single problem. I haven't had a single moment where I thought, oh, that sounded a bit dodgy, or even to the point where it felt like it was kind of veering off to one side with a bit of a pull over certain bits of road that are uneven or kind of have potholes that you have to avoid. But it's been super impressive, and it just sticks to the road. I think the overall setup as well, with the kind of aerodynamics of things, with that tiny added of a spoiler on the rear end, it just gives you that element of performance, and it really does suit up to a modern day sports or supercar. For 2006, it's just so impressive. The car's also got an upgraded ECU unit and a custom built exhaust, which you may have already noticed I've just opened up, because you can have the valves open or closed. I had them closed at the beginning of the review to see if you'd noticed the difference, and I think you will, because as soon as I opened it up, it just blew my mind. The complete different sound, and even the tone and pitch of the noise that comes out of the rear end now is just, it's unmatched. I think the best part about it is when you look at the GT8 and even the GT12 that Aston Martin have built, the kind of sound that come out of those is usually something you've never heard before. It's kind of very crackly, it's very aggressive, and it's so loud. So when you're trying to match that in a car like the Vantage V8, to get it to that crazy level of ridiculous sound, they've done really well. I'm just going to wait for the traffic to clear a little bit, because unfortunately I'm following a very large size lorry. But I'll put my foot down in a second and give you a little bit of an idea of how good this car really sounds. Honestly, the difference in that compared to when the valves are closed is just unreal. It does sound so good. I mean, the standard V8 sound is brilliant, but with that extent of the extra kind of crackles and stuff when you downshift, and the higher pitch note when you accelerate, it just sounds amazing. It sounds so good, and I think that's one thing that this car's absolutely matched in terms of the kind of GTA experience that you'd have. It's definitely the sound. One thing I must add is Richard's been kind enough to lend me this car for a week. I've got a mileage cap, because obviously the car's so low mileage at 6,000 miles, but I've also got a couple more videos coming out on the car, so I don't feel like this is the end, because I'll be heading to Carfest on Friday and then Moatlands on Sunday. So Moatlands is a very exclusive supercar and hypercar meet that's held in Kent every year, and then Carfest is something I've never actually been to before, so I'm excited to kind of even see that event myself. So do stick around for those two videos that'll be coming out very soon. So to conclude this review part of this free video series, it's blown me away a little bit, I'm not going to lie. I was kind of a bit shocked straight away when I got in the car in terms of how modern it felt, in terms of how it drove and seating positions and these kind of things that you wouldn't even really kind of take into account rather than when you're buying a car itself, because obviously 2006, I mean, my car's 2009 that I drive daily, and even that feels dated sometimes, but this just doesn't really give me any kind of element of being old. I know a lot of people would be offended by that who are driving kind of 1980 classics and this kind of thing, but I mean, this is basically a modern classic now, and it definitely lives up to that. And with all these kind of adjustments that Challenge Road have made, it's basically a brand new car. And I love that, because although being older and quite a bit cheaper than a modern day sports car and supercar, just with those slight tweaks and adjustments to the way it drives, performs, handles and sounds, and feels of course, it's just amazing. I think in terms of what kind of cars you can get for the money that this is valued at, you'd struggle to get anything as clean and tidy and maybe even kind of performance-wise, to be honest, that would give you the same thrills and excitement that this car does. And I mean, in terms of it being my first sports/supercar that I've driven on the channel, what a way to start. Richard has already teased me with the idea of getting behind the wheel of the 4.7 litre Vantage that they have, which again is a CTR edition. I believe it's CTR 3. So that'll be good fun as well. So do stick around for that video, as well as more, hopefully, sports and supercar videos. But in terms of today's video, thank you very much for watching. Thank you Challenger Road for lending me the beast. Do check out all their social media platforms. I'll link the Instagram, YouTube, etc. in the bio below, so go and show them some love. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for plenty more videos to come. I'll see you again soon. What a soundtrack.